Despite sanctions imposed on Russia by Western nations, countries like Saudi Arabia, India and China have continued and increased their oil and gas purchases from Russia. Other countries such as the European Union are cutting down their imports from Russia, but for some other countries, it's an opportunity to purchase oil and gas at a discounted rate since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is another means that those purchasing oil or gas from Russia support and boost Russia's economy. But why those countries who helped in imposing the sanctions on Russia are not stopping those who are the major buyers of Russian oil? The answer to those questions is not simple and is dependent on the demand and supply of global oil prices and the country's interest that imposing restrictions on Russia either directly or indirectly. Let's take a closer look at the EU. The EU relies on Russia for a substantial part of its energy needs. Russia is the EU's leading supplier of oil, gas, and coal imports. Russia accounts for about 2/5 of the EU's gas imports, 26.9% of its imported crude oil, and almost half of its supplies of solid fuel. In all, imports from Russia accounted for a quarter of Europe's energy consumption in 2020, second only to the 42% produced from the EU's own resources. While Europe is dependent on Russia for a substantial part of its energy needs, it is also the latter's biggest buyer, consuming nearly 3/4 of the gas it produces, which means significant revenue coming into Moscow. Europe also buys oil from Russia. Oil and gas exports make up a large portion of Russia's federal budget. The EU has the plan to end its dependence on Russian energy by 2030. Accelerating the switch to renewable energy will be key to this strategy. The EU is also planning for longer-term energy independence. Just weeks after Russian forces invaded Ukraine in late February, Brussels announced the REPowerEU plan to end all Russian energy imports by 2030. Now let's take a close look at those countries that are currently the biggest buyers of Russian energy products after sanctions on Russia because of the Ukraine invasion. India has been buying oil from Russia for a number of reasons. One reason is that Russia has been selling oil at a discounted rate since its invasion of Ukraine. This allows India to buy oil at a cheaper price, which can help to temper inflation while saving money. India is the world's third largest crude consumer after the United States and China and imports 85% of its needs. Previously, its main suppliers were in the Middle East. Russia is number one with more than 28% of oil imports. India has emerged as Russia's largest oil customer after China following a boycott by Western buyers. In addition to these, India also exports refined fuel to US and European markets. The Western countries are not in a condition to stop India to purchase oil and gas from Russia because this will also impact their economy. India is gaining the advantage of this situation by purchasing the oil at a very discounted rate and selling it to other countries at a higher margin. Why Saudi Arabia is purchasing oil from Russia? Saudi Arabia has been buying oil from Russia for a common reason as India that Russia's selling fuel at discounted prices after international sanctions over its invasion of Ukraine. This allows Saudi Arabia to buy oil at a discount and then sell it on the world market at a higher price. Another reason is that Saudi Arabia uses Russian oil as fuel for electricity generation, freeing up its own crude for export. This helps Saudi Arabia meet its summer cooling demand and increase its oil exports. Saudi Arabia imported 647,000 tons, 48,000 barrels per day, of fuel oil from Russia via Russian and Estonian ports in April-June 2022. That was up from 320,000 tons in the same period a year ago. For the full year 2021, Saudi Arabia imported 1.05 million tons of Russian fuel oil. Some of the Russian fuel made its way to Saudi Arabia through Egypt, accounting for some of the 110,000 barrels per day imported from Egypt in June. Meanwhile, Egypt imported 70,000 barrels per day from Russia in June. Why China is purchasing oil from Russia? China has been importing oil from Russia for a reason which is common for both India and Saudi Arabia because of a discounted rate because of the invasion of Ukraine. This allows China to buy oil at a cheaper price, which can help Chinese refiners keep costs down at a time when their margins are crimped by slowing demand from strict COVID-19 controls and Beijing's restrictions on fuel exports amid supply concerns. China is the world's top importer of crude oil, and Russian oil helps Chinese refiners keep costs down. China's imports of Russian oil have risen significantly in the months following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. China is also exporting refined fuel to other countries. China is also gaining the advantage of this situation by purchasing the oil at a very discounted rate and selling it to other countries at a higher margin. Just like India, China is also getting a lot of profit because of this situation. The Western countries want to hit Russia economically, but on the other hand, they do not want to disturb the global oil market, and China and India's role in purchasing the oil from Russia and selling it to other countries are supporting one of the causes.